FlyKnight is a not roguelike, first-person adventure indie game where you play as a FlyKnight on a grand and important quest to stop a most terrifying and powerful force that has laid waste to your order. A woman, having barely survived an ambush by her top stream donors. Okay, I wrote this script at like 2 o'clock, so I guess I was trying to be quirky. The goal, you set out to find and defeat Lunamoth and restore wings to your fellow flies. I'm gonna give you some tips, talk about this game, but first, let's talk. Unlike my last video, I actually don't have anything to say on this. The game just works. I included it in my script just so this section wouldn't feel left out. So, mwah. Too bad I was still too lazy to actually give this one a proper, pretty transitional background. That's why the text isn't even aligned right. But yeah, the game works. I didn't have any issues running it. It works on my machine. So, with that, we'll move on to... I hope you like music, because you're going to be hearing it a lot. From the moment you start your run until the moment it ends, music is constantly playing. I'll plug in my aux and let you cop a listen before I give my thoughts. What's here is good. I like the variety and the nice retro dungeon crawler vibe that it exudes. It's just that it's constant. Very rarely does the music actually stop. Funnily enough, there are some moments in the game where the game pulls the music away, but those are spoilers, so I don't want to get into them just yet. And not to address the Dark Souls in the room quite yet, but I do think having some sort of unique, lower, cozier theme play at bonfires would have been nice too, just to get a break from the constant same track that plays when you're in each area. For sound, I think the best way I could classify it would be crunchy and present, but in a good way. Combat sounds really satisfying, and it makes it feel that much more engaging. This is a personal pet peeve of mine, but I'm a big believer that sound is actually just as important, if not arguably more important, than actual combat at times. Even if the player is impactful, if they don't get visual and audio cues from the game they're playing, they end up not feeling impactful, so the combat just kind of sucks. And this game does a good job on delivering on that front, especially when you land a nice parry kick combo. Don't try it. I did warn you. I mean, just look at that. Now that is good sound design. The game has a PS1 era style look. It's very retro, angular, pixelated, and low poly, though the level of smoothness and pixelation can be adjusted. The game also has filters, and they're there. That's all I have to say about them. This is a lot of words to say that, yes, the game looks like old school RuneScape. I've never played RuneScape, though, so I didn't want to open up that line as to commit any stolen valor. This isn't really connected to anything. I do think it's kind of neat that your character does his little head bob movement in the top left all the time, so you can see yourself. Visually, the UI isn't too distinct, but it's functional. It doesn't have any issues. This is kind of broaching into gameplay territory, but part of me does wish that there was a third-person option. This isn't really a critique, though. It's just kind of me being greedy and wanting more. I like the insect designs that we have. I do wish that the game leaned more into it. Not to jump ahead to my next section, but there are a couple areas where the game could really focus more on its insect theme. Outside of the tutorial, there's only 3 areas that you go to: the cave, the swamp, and the ruins. I think each area is really distinct. They have a different vibe to them. The caves are nice and dark and narrow. The swamp is open, has more verticality. The ruined city, well, it's an urban environment, so there's that. One thing I will say about the swamp, I wish that the lighting was brighter. I'm not sure if it was a design limitation or a design decision, but the swamp just feels weird. The caves are dark with that low draw distance, and it works there to make them feel more ominous and dangerous to be in. The swamp is this big open area, but it's just as dark as the caves in a way that I don't think really works. I honestly wasn't sure if we were meant to be on the surface or underground during that section. So having some form of natural light up the area would do a lot to make it feel more distinct. And I know the game is capable of this because it does it in the city. So I'm not really sure why the swamp is that way, but in my opinion, it should have some better lighting. Okay, so this is the day after I recorded what I already had for the visual section. I don't know how I forgot to mention this. Anytime you rest at a bonfire, your screen lights up like you just invoked the sun god's wrath. Like Ra himself is coming to smite you. A napalm strike just got called into your location. Why is it so bright? If I had to give one real critique of the visuals, why does the brightness explode when you rest at a bonfire? Anyways, we're moving on now. I was originally going to do a Souls-like section in this script. I had the whole thing written. I'm staring at it right now. But I decided that I think it's better to just look at this game on its own as much as possible. So consider this an acknowledgement that, yes, the game is a Souls-like, but I just don't really want to compare it. So, scrapped section. We're moving on now. Gameplay can be broken up into 2 components: combat and exploration. I'm not going to get too technical, but the basic loop for combat is if you're doing melee, you either circle strafe or parry and block kick an enemy. The game does have a dedicated bow slot, which is nice because I never use them when I play FromSoft games. There's also magic in it too, but don't expect to be a full mage build. It's sort of a support role. Enemies have different attacks and different resistances, so what weapon you actually use does matter. One of the main selling points for the combat is that it has limb-based combat. I thought at first it was kind of a gimmick, but it actually matters a lot if you pay attention to it, especially later on. Oh, hello. Ow. That's right. Ah! Me a nice nap. He's confused. I was honestly kind of surprised by how good bows are. The first boss in the game, on my first run, I had no idea what he actually did because I didn't fight him. I totally cheesed him with a bow. is so busted. There's no dodging mechanic. I do think there should be one, even if it's just a simple strafe, left, right, or back, just to give you some more maneuverability in combat. One thing that is interesting is that weapon attacks are directional, and they move dependent on what direction your character is moving. I do think there should be an option to actually toggle between your character's movement or your mouse's movement, because different attacks sometimes depend on what direction you're moving, and it feels like you're fighting the game a little bit when you want to get off one specific attack that does a different damage type than what you're trying to do. Ultimately though, like in every RPG game, let's be honest, there's only one real option. You're gonna rock big armor with a big weapon and just face tank everything. The game also has a weight system where your character's stamina regen is determined by how much weight your gear total is. In combat, it's fine. When you're just trying to move around though, sprinting costs stamina and you move so slow. If you've played Morrowind, you know what I'm talking about. If I could make one change to that, just have stamina not be used outside of combat. Now, I've already spoiled this in the footage, but yes, this game has fishing. Fish are buff items. Some are better than others, methinks. But all you do is you catch them, plop them in your fish slot. If you're one of those people who gets a really good buff item and you spend the entire game not using it because you're scared that you'll waste it, don't be. The fish are infinitely respawning. And once you get to the Tower of Anticipation, every fish in the game, save for one, is there. So get as many fish as you want. Pro tip, they stack. The effects stack. Now, I'm not going to spoil everything for you by showing you all the hidden secrets and whatnot in the exploration. And I feel like I've said this before, but it's simple but good. That kind of describes this entire game. It's simple but good. There's a couple of good items hidden away, but nothing too crazy. Surprisingly, there's no mimics in the game. I spent the entire game going through assuming that there would be a mimic at some point, and it just never happened. Overall, the gameplay isn't difficult. There's no souls or XP progression, so when you die, the only consequence is having to redo an area. In the 2.5 runs that I did getting footage for this game, I didn't die once other than intentionally or falling. I know the developer said that at some point difficulty options would be coming, so I do look forward to that. Given that there's only 3 bosses and 1 mini-boss, I'm not going to show all of them other than just the plant. But I did like the boss fights a lot. They were pretty fun. No special transition this time. We're getting close to spoilers, so if you don't want the story spoiled, go to here. I'm actually quite a fan of the story. Not because the story itself is something too complex, but it sets up the setting of the FlyKnight verse in a way that you could expand upon it a lot in a sequel or another spin-off game, something like that. So throughout the game, you meet mainly 4 NPCs. A homeless fly, a member of the Wasp Order, a nameless FlyKnight of your fellow order, and then Calum, the leader of your order. Most of the story doesn't really progress until the final bits of the game. You learn that Lunamoth's goal is to usurp cosmic power to make herself a god, and that she's been collecting the wings of various insects to do so. Calum betrays you. He kills your fellow knight, which is why throughout the game, you see a bunch of dead FlyKnights at various sections. And Calum tells you when you first meet him that he's looking for fellow knights of your order. And he wants you to bring them to him. Now, while you never get a chance to actually bring anyone from your order to meet Calum, it becomes pretty clear that he's been luring them there to kill them. The Wasp, he shows up at the end to fight you because he doesn't want you to have all the glory. You end up killing Lunamoth and it's revealed that the homeless fly, or vagrant fly as he's actually called, is none other than the fly deity himself, who's been observing your progress the entire time. And that's it. You slay Lunimoff, and the game ends. So the story itself isn't that deep, so to speak, but it's good, and again, it sets up lore. I mean, there's dinosaurs and other various creatures mentioned throughout the game. There's enough to where I walked away from the story actually being really curious to see where the setting could go. I'm not sure what the developers' plans are for future titles, but I think it would be interesting to see more. It almost achieves, again, not to draw Dark Souls comparisons, but it almost achieves that Souls-like experience where there's just enough lore to show you that there's some real depth here, but it doesn't reveal literally everything to you. So kudos to the devs, or dev, for making a story that actually has me interested in learning more about the setting. Final thoughts. I know there's been a few times where I've been a little bit hard on this game, but none of it's to really come across as overly critiquing it. Again, this is a small indie game. Mainly just giving pointers. Overall, I really enjoyed this game. It's super cheap on Steam. It's only a couple of dollars. It does a really good job at knowing what it wants to do, and it does it. I feel like a lot of indie games oversell themselves, or they reach beyond what they're realistically capable of, and so create expectations that they can't really deliver on. But I walked away from this game feeling like it set itself up, knowing what it was going to do. It delivered on what it wanted to do, and it ended just when it was supposed to. I think had the game gone on for an extra 2 or 3 hours, it might have dragged on a little too long. But I think the game ends exactly where it needs to. So I wholeheartedly recommend it. Go get it on Steam. Support actual indie devs who are making good games. Again, I don't have a outro, so bye.